Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2313 today. Talking with a very fascinating guy who took his dad's love for cars and then his love for cars and created quite an active business. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Sewanee, Georgia, with a very special guest. This guy is one of the most busiest guys I think I'm ever going to talk to, by the name of Sean Mathis. Sean, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're going to have some fun. Now, before we dive into, as I said, what is a very, I don't know how you do everything you do in your life. What's one little thing that most people don't know about you?
I flew on a C-130 from Reno, Nevada to Bagram, Afghanistan, and was there during Thanksgiving, my son's first birthday, Christmas, New Year's, and my wife's birthday.
Oh, well, I know you're an Air Force veteran, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you for your service very, very much. I greatly appreciate that. My next door neighbor is a retired Air Force flyer. He flew those planes back in the day before he went on and started flying normal folks like me around on American Airlines, and he's told me some wonderful stories. But, the sacrifices that you and all the veterans and their families do, I can't emphasize enough how appreciative I am and everybody in this country should be.
Thank you.
Because that's tough, man. What's it like flying on a plane like that, though? I mean, do you have like nice cushy seats, or you in those little canvas hammock things you see hanging on the back?
No, yeah, it's those net jumpers.
Oh.
We had a few guys that brought hammocks and they were strung up inside the plane. It was long, man.
Oh.
It was brutal. We were laying on top of pallets because we were working on C-130, so it was all our gear. So we took our planes with all our stuff, and the people were just the afterthought.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures of that, and oh my gosh. Well, you guys are tough. So thank you. Thank you very much.
It was fun.
Yeah, that's a long flight. I just took a flight to India over Christmas time, and that was a long flight too, but I can't imagine doing it the way you guys do. Plus the noise. It's got to be like deafening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's constant white noise. It's just you hear the hum of the motors the whole time.
So no movies, no, tableside meals, none of that, huh?
Not at all.
No, I didn't think so. Oh my goodness. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Let me give you an introduction here. Sean Mathis founded Miles Through Time Automotive Museum in 2017 with only one car. It was his pop's 1959 Cadillac. Now his award-winning museum displays over 100 years of automotive history with over 70 vehicles and 5,000 model cars. You sound like one of those guys that collects model cars like I have. Sean is also the owner of Vintage Garage Antiques and the creator of the Automotive Museum Guide. Sean is an Air Force veteran, as he mentioned, a board member of the National Association of Automobile Museums, and if that's not enough, he also works with his wife, Tori, at their marketing agency. We'll learn a lot more about Sean, the museums, the guide, and everything. But first, a word from our sponsors, so give them a little listen. Sit tight, buckle up. We'll be right back. Years ago, when it was time to renew my collector car insurance policy, my carrier's rates went up. Way up, but my usage was the same and I never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. So what's with that? So I turned to American Collectors Insurance. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? Then it's time to look around and call American Collectors Insurance. I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, I'm glad I did. I saved hundreds of dollars every year and slept better at night knowing my baby was properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provided me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by their history of taking great care of their clients. What could be better than that? So give them a call and ask for a quote today. 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did with American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. 20, 50, or 100 years from now, will there be a workforce to care for the collector vehicles we love? With auto shop programs disappearing across the country, it's a question we enthusiasts have to ask. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these vehicles aren't lost to time. One of the many ways RPM, which is short for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, is accomplishing this goal is through workforce development initiatives. The RPM apprenticeship program enables the next generation of artisans to earn a living while they learn the craft of restoring and preserving these vehicles directly from industry professionals. The Endangered Skills Program documents the process of masters training future craftspeople on a variety of critical skills in danger of being lost forever. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of the collector vehicle skills trade, visit RPM Foundation today. They're one of the charities of choice here on Cars Yeah! So, Sean, we are back. So, my first thought is I got to know you a little bit before we connected today. How on earth does this guy do all of this? So I want to kind of start with the beginning of how you got into your passion for cars. I mentioned your pop's car that you started the museum with, and then I want to talk individually about Through Time Automotive Museum, Automotive Museum Guide, Vintage Garage Antiques, and I'd like to hear about this marketing agency too. But let's go back in time. How'd you become a car guy?
I have always been into cars my entire life. I couldn't really pinpoint it back to something specifically other than I always thought of them as more than just transportation. So, it started with getting my first car and doing everything I could with that. And, I finally got the opportunity to inherit my grandpa's 59 Cadillac, which opened me up to the whole classic car world, and it changed my life.
Well, most definitely. And so let's start with the Through Time Automotive Museum, because it all started with Pop's car, as you say, that beautiful Cadillac. What gave you the drive, the idea to start a museum? Because museums, oh my goodness, these are tough deals. I've had many, many museum curators, directors on the show. I was involved with the LeMay Museum, which is about 15 minutes from my house when it was just a twinkle in Harold LeMay's eye, up until the museum they have there. And of course, I've been to some of the wonderful museums all over the world. But so what was the impetus to go, I think I'll just start a museum with Pop's car?
So it wasn't quite an epiphany like that. What it was, I felt so grateful to have my grandpa's Cadillac that I wanted to share it with absolutely everybody I could.
Nice.
I got that car delivered to me and literally stayed up all night long detailing it. I was finishing the wheels when my wife got up in the morning. And I took it to car shows. It's got its own Facebook page. It's got its own website. I got it on the cover of a magazine. And I did everything I could with it just because, I felt I wanted to share it with everybody. And yet it got really old after a little while of spending every Saturday at car shows and, having a car that didn't necessarily fit into I'm driving a Mopar or I'm driving a Mustang or anything like that. And it was an old car. The only thing I've visually done to the car is put brand new white wall tires on it. Other than that, it's still the car my grandpa had sitting in his shop. So, I was like, well, what if I had a place that I could park this thing that was climate controlled and have people come to me instead of me going to them. And so I thought of this idea where it was essentially a storage facility that all the storage facilities I knew of just shoved them in warehouses and nobody ever got to see them except for when the owner came to pull it out. So I was like, instead of doing that, which is such a waste, I wanted to have it displayed as a museum. So I'd have an opportunity to store my car somewhere and somebody else would as well. And then the owners would get to drive it when they wanted to, but while they weren't, they were displayed as museum exhibits. And so this was just an idea I had to do in a few, years down the road when I had more than one car, more time, more money. And then the opportunity came to give it a shot. And I felt I would have regretted if I wouldn't have tried. So I went all in and learned a lot along the way.
Well, no kidding. What color is the car?
Wood rose, which is
Wood Row. Beautiful.
pink, essentially.
Goes back to the pink Cadillac legacy. And of course, that era, that year, 59, that's the cat's meow. My goodness. That car's just incredible from every aspect. It was just all those years of the buildup of the winged cars and, all that fun stuff. That was like the last of that massive era, right?
Yeah, it actually holds the record for the highest production fin on any vehicle. And it's the only year, 1959.
Wow. Well, they're amazing, and how fortunate you are. And in that color, I mean, kind of a unique color that you don't see very often. So I'm very, very happy to do that. So tell us a little bit about where the museum is, what people can expect to see when they go there.
So the museum, I started it in 2017. Initially, it was all storage based, and I even did consignment. And for the first 3 years, if it was open, it was because I was there. Eventually, I outgrew the space, had an opportunity to move it, turned it into a 501c3 nonprofit, and went from that one car that I started in 2017 to currently over 70 full-size cars on display.
Whoa.
And the museum's collection, we now have 11 vehicles that the museum owns, all of which have been donated either by individuals or other car museums. And the rest of the cars are all privately owned, many of which are family heirlooms to somebody else, keeping in line with that same idea that started the museum.
How cool is that? So you've got this family history thing. So that means each car most cars do have a story, but each car has a story.
That's right.
Oh, how fun. Now, I also mentioned in your intro, you got a few model cars.
Yeah, and the neat thing is every single one of those model cars have been donated to the museum.
Wow.
So I was actually on a morning show in Atlanta, and the guy came through and toured the museum, and somebody was watching, and she came to the museum afterwards and met me and saw everything that we were doing. And we wound up going up to her place and boxing up her late husband's collection of cars.
Oh, nice.
And he literally, for over 20 years, bought a Franklin Mint, Danbury Mint, every single time they came out with one.
Oh, my goodness.
So she donated the entire collection and 13 display cabinets to display them in.
Well, that's got to be fun because, we see that especially now with baby boomers aging and collections, and maybe family members don't want all these things. They just don't have the room for them, but they don't want to just dump them. I doubt anybody would throw them away, but what do you do with this? And it's a respect for somebody's passion, a family member's passion for things they collected and were dear to, but it's hard to know, how do you deal with all this stuff? So that must have made her very happy.
It's pretty awesome to be able to provide that outlet for her. So each cabinet, it's referred to as the Tom Ash collection. And she comes into the museum, and if you ever see her sitting there, she'll pull up a chair, just stare at his collection and reminisce. And
oh, how nice.
It's pretty neat to be able to do that.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Very, very cool. Now, where is the museum located?
The museum is located in Clarksville, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half from the heart of Atlanta, northeast of Atlanta.
Okay, so easy to find. And we'll be listing websites and everything for you listeners so you can learn about it. So you're in the area, you can go visit or make a special trip. As summer is coming here for road trips, there's some great place to go, which is a great segue into your Automotive Museum guide. Tell us about this.
This was something I didn't anticipate creating either. This was, when I started Miles Through Time, I had no experience in the museum world whatsoever. So it was a mad dash to try to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do to make this thing successful. So I immediately just started searching. I was like trying to find out what other car museums were doing. And in my quest to do that, I found a lot that didn't have any information. I found a lot of information that was outdated on closed museums. But basically, I put all that information together, took what I needed from it. But rather than waste all my research, I turned it into this website that became a resource of making it easy for visitors to find car museums all over the country. And over the course of a few years, I kept adding to it. And now there's over 300 automotive museums just in North America listed.
Wow. Well, you got a great website. And again, we'll put a link to that. I think this, when I looked at that, I went, this is so cool, because what if you were doing a road trip? And we've all done this. And I used to travel to Europe a lot for work. And the first time I went, I came back and I told people, I was here, I was there. And they said, did you go over to see this? And I'm like, what? You mean if I'd gone one block south, I would have found this very cool car museum in this little town? I had no idea. So what you're providing is a wonderful, wonderful resource. And do you keep finding more? Because we all know the big museums. I mean, it's pretty simple. But there's all these other, well, like your museum and others that exist out there, and even private collections that I would assume if people could reach out and say, hey, I'm going to be in your town. I'd like to see your cars. Well, we all know car people. They love to share, right?
Yeah, every once in a while, a new one comes up on my radar. Or what's interesting is a lot of museums are still being created. And so as they get created, they get added to the museum. And with that, car museums close as well. And so I've got to keep that updated.
Well, we saw that during COVID, sadly. And I had many guests on the show that had to close their museums. But going back to some that have opened, the new Savoy Museum. I had the director there on the show last year when they opened, and, beautiful, beautiful place.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it's wonderful. And people can just go to the website and get on your mailing list, as I have, and you just send notifications and updates on what's new and what's going on so that they keep being reminded that you're out there, right?
Yeah, I'll actually feature at least 3 museums every single week. And I kind of do that as a way to go through the list myself and make sure everything is up to date and give museums an opportunity to be discovered by people.
So I've got to think, is your goal to visit all these museums?
It is. I purchased a 1999 Mach MSV RV that I'll be taking a Mach Automotive Museum tour. I'll be taking multiple round-trip tours visiting all of America's automotive museums in it.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. Well, this is pretty cool. I was just at the La Jolla Concours, my hometown Concours, over the the time the show airs will be a few weeks ago. But I was thinking about road trips because Airstream had a couple vehicles there on display, and I was with my old college roommate, and he was talking about wanting to get one of those and pull it behind his vehicle and take his girls on road trips to show them America and spend time. And have you ever been inside one of those Airstreams? Those things are nice.
Yeah, they're pretty sweet.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be the way to roll. And they also had the big van, modified van. So if you're happy to be in tighter quarters, maybe there's just 2 of you. But what a great idea to travel this country and go visit car museums. And the Automotive Museum Guide here that Sean has created, that's your go-to for this. Also want to talk about vintage garage antiques. As if you're not already busy enough, my friend. What's this all about?
So again, this was not planned by any means. But when I moved the museum from its original location inside of its inside of its new location, it was actually inside of an overflow flea market. It wasn't a nice place, but I essentially took a large section of the guy's space and created a museum from scratch in it again, 3 years later. But the difference of this place was that the flea market staff was where visitors would get their tickets to the museum, and they'd be able to go into a self-guided tour, which made it so that I didn't necessarily have to be there every day, and also made the museum open 7 days a week. So that was huge. However, after about a year of this setup, I was moving a concept car in that was just donated to the museum after hours, and the guy that owned the flea market came up to me and was like, "By the way, I'm not renewing my lease." So after a little bit of a panic, talked to my wife, and it was determined that we were going to do our own thing. The antique part of it was appealing, the flea market not so much, but it all served a purpose. So I created Vintage Garage Antiques, and all the vendors at Vintage Garage Antiques are what actually support not only Vintage Garage Antiques, but Miles Through Time, which also enabled me to expand the museum not once, but now twice.
Wow. Well, man, this is pretty cool. You are one smart guy. It's leveraging and moving and making things happen. So you're going to be like the new Mike Wolf of American Pickers here. I think as you go out and travel around and find cars, or be like Harold LeMay, he traveled the country and brought back cars every time he went out. Before you know it, he had 3,500 plus cars. I think he had a Guinness Book record at one point.
I do remember that. Yeah, the neat thing about all this is I've bootstrapped the whole thing. So there's no wealthy benefactor behind any of this. It is literally, I describe it as all of a co-op style. So it is people going, "Hey, I like the concept of this museum. How can I be a part of it?"
Well, amazing. I mean, entrepreneurship, American know-how, go to, be strong, make your dreams happen. That's why I'm so excited to have you on the show, because this story is awesome. And again, as if all that's not enough, you and your wife, Tori, have a marketing agency. Tell me about that.
Yeah. What's funny is my wife started her marketing company in 2007, of all years.
Oh, that was a tough year to start a company.
Right. And I stayed working in corporate for years until 2016. I finally was like, all right, I'm going to work full time with you. And, we're going to do this thing. It wasn't a year later and Miles Through Time started and I got pulled away ever since. So I basically do whatever she needs me to do in what little free time that I have available.
What kind of marketing agency is it? What does Tori do there?
So she owns Lake Shark Media, but also she's shifted everything towards ToriMathis.com, and she actually teaches now. And so she teaches smart marketing and tells people how they can take care of everything they need to take care of themselves the smart way.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I tell you, the world we live in now and our ability as individuals, and I'm a great example, to reach out to people. And when I started this, it was 9 years ago. And most people, when I said I'm a podcaster, they went, "What's that?"
Right.
You're one of those young kids that, has this weird media thing. Now everybody seems to have a podcast. But yeah, I sit here some days and I go, wow, I'm reaching people in 80 countries every day. This is just amazing. And the things that you can do on your own. And sounds like Tori, and I hope I'm inspiring people and helping people as well with what I do, to be able to reach out and offer things to people for virtually free is pretty cool. So my hat's off to you and Tori for the entrepreneurial spirit that you guys have. Let's talk a little bit more about you and get to know you a little bit more. Inspirational people, mentors, what I call our driving inspirations. Has there been somebody in your life that's really helped you with this museum stuff and all the old car things?
My wife, Tori, if it wasn't for her, there would be no Miles Through Time, because literally when the opportunity came to start the museum, my first instinct was, it's just an idea. I don't have the time or the money or anything. And she was the one that was really pushing it down, that saying, I would absolutely regret not trying. I'd rather do it and fail than to have regretted not doing it at all. Now I also have my circle of support has grown much larger. I've got a guy named Truett Phillips, Jenny, Kevin, and a few other volunteers at Miles Through Time that really helped me with everything. I mean, the museum has grown to the point now that I literally, there is no way I can do it by myself.
Yeah. Well, you've learned more about the secret sauce to life, and that's surround yourself with very good people, and then have them, or let them, I should say, do their job.
That's right.
And stay out of their way. Challenges. Now, what you've taken on and not really knowing what was coming must have been a great challenge. Is there one specific situation, though, that was a great challenge and maybe kind of pushed you back on your heels, but taught you a great lesson that you look back now and say, boy, I'm glad I did that?
Starting a museum with one car is a huge challenge. And then to literally start over from scratch again 3 years later with no funds was even more difficult, believe it or not. But then I stayed focused on the end goal, which was to create a world-class automotive museum. And I have no direct line to get there. So I'm constantly just trying to find creative ways to do it. And that's part of the reason why Vintage Garage Antiques even exists. It wasn't planned, but it works and makes sense.
People have said to me throughout my life, oh, you're so lucky. You're always so lucky. And I go, well, that's a nice thought, but I really think it's more of preparation and observation, of seeing an opportunity that occurs that crosses your path and looking at it and thinking about it and taking that challenge, if you will. Sounds like that's what you've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a great partner. When I started this podcast, honestly, almost everybody I said I was going to do this just went, what?
Yeah.
And my wife, who's way smarter than me, my listeners know that, I say it all the time, but she is, she looked at me and she said, if you don't at least try this, you will always look back and say, I wonder what would have been, what could have happened. So Yeah, it's important to have people around you that support you and let you take that chance, right?
Yeah, you think of how many things don't get done because somebody doesn't have that person behind them telling them, hey, you need to go do this.
Well, yeah, and that philosophy of failing is okay, because for so long, I know a person I used to know used to say, oh, failure is not an option. Well, that keeps you from trying crazy things.
Absolutely.
And I remember a great talk. I wish I couldn't even paraphrase it properly, but Elon Musk was talking about that and the fact that you've got to take chances. And if you're not willing to take chances, I think he said, just go work for somebody else.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So bravo to you and all those out there that take chances. And all of us have fallen on our face and get up again and go, okay, well, I won't do that again. I'll try something different. Special vehicle stories. I have a feeling it's Pop's Cadillac. Is that the car for you?
It is. However, I've got another special car that we've added. I've got a 1935 Mathis EMY 4S.
Wait, there's a name here. Does that relate?
It is the same name. However, as far as I know, I'm not related to it.
Okay.
I actually did not know they even made a Mathis vehicle until I saw the concept Mathis at the Tampa Bay Automobile Museum.
Oh, well, that must have been exciting to see.
It was awesome. And for a couple years, I had, I was like, man, it makes sense for me to have one. I want one. However, there aren't any in the States. And even when you find them overseas, there are very few. But I happened to be judging a concours show in Tampa in 2021, and Susan from the Tampa Bay Automobile Museum was there with her car and her husband, and she told me that a guy had just snail mailed a packet to sell them his Mathis in Melbourne, Florida.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I reached out to the guy, drove to Melbourne, Florida to meet him, saw the car, tried to get him to donate the car to the museum because I didn't actually have any way of buying the car. But after meeting him and telling him what I wanted to do with it and everything, I went back and created a platform to raise the money to purchase the car. Got it within a month and went back down there and was able to purchase the car from him. And now it is on display in the museum, and it is the only one in the country.
So that company was started by a gentleman in France.
That's right, Emile Mathis.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting thing. It's so funny how many cars the first time I went to Hershey to the big swap meet, I was walking around. My daughter, who's 33 now, I believe. I hope I got that right, Paige. I hope so. Sorry. It's hard to think you have a daughter that old. Makes you feel really old. And I was walking around, it was on typical rainy Hershey swap meet day. And I came across this guy with medallions, like the cloisonne hood medallions off cars. Mm-hmm. And one was Paige. And I went, Page? I've never heard of a Page car. And he goes, oh, yeah. And he goes, I've got two of them back here. Walk around. And there's these two cars, back from, I think, 1917, 1920. Again, kind of an obscure car maker that exists. So I had to buy all the hood emblems that he had.
That's awesome.
I had them framed for my daughter. But yeah, I have never heard of them. I'm going to have to do a little Wikipedia checking here and learn more about this. And as I open up Wikipedia here and we talk, I see founded in 1905.
Yep.
Wow. How cool is that? So how's this, what powers this thing? Like, what are we talking about for power?
It's got a little four-cylinder in it. I mean, essentially, it looks a lot like a Ford, except the entire car is metric.
Okay, gotcha. Of course.
What's neat, though, is the guy I got it from purchased it from the original owner in 1957 while he was serving in the Air Force in the French Alps. The original owner was actually using the car as a tractor at the time.
Oh,
he then purchased it and drove the car on and off base until he had it shipped to the States in 1959 and has had it ever since.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Which I was also like, hey, I'm Air Force. My grandpa's car is 1959. That's when he brought it back.
Yeah.
The name, I was like, this car is meant to come with me.
Well, I think so. Yeah. Well, how cool is that? I love it. I love it. So bucket list moving forward. Where do you see your business, your museum, all these entities being? Now, let's not go too far down the road because things can happen as we just experienced. But let's say the next 3 to 5 years.
Oh, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. Is that too far? Is that looking too far out?
It's actually, I look way out. Mike, my ultimate goal for the museum, I created it to outlast me.
Awesome. Well, of course.
So it The goal is to have our own building for the museum, something large enough to display over 100 vehicles. I think keeping vintage garage antiques is a unique aspect of it, so I'd like to keep that. And then having a huge parking lot for car shows. I mean, our annual car show, we bring in 1,000 people in one day. But right now,
1,000? Wow!
Oh, yeah.
Good job!
Yeah.
Wow!
Thank you. But right now, we're in a building that's owned by somebody else.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We're trying to do the best we can, but I mean, I think eventually, if we can have a purpose-built facility for the museum, something right now I think of Miles Through Time as the very beginning stages of something great.
Yeah. Well, if there's a listener out there that's maybe a little philanthropic, or maybe wants to reach out to Sean and say, hey, we have some funds. I mean, if it was me, the Mark Green building for the,
that's right.
We'll put contact information. That sounds pretty cool, because the great thing, again, well, I say it's great, but it is part of time, is a lot of folks, and I had this conversation at La Jolla Concours, a lot of the folks that have these old cars are aging out, and they want them to carry on. They want them to be seen, and they want young people to see them. But what do I do with the collection? And if they've got some wealth, this is a nice way to carry on that legacy and put it in the very confident hands of Sean Mathis. So there you go. Maybe we'll connect you with the right people.
Nice.
I want to crawl into your head a little bit here and be your car psychologist. If you were reincarnated or manifest as a vehicle, maybe we already answered this one too, because you are a Mathis, you have a Mathis. But what would you be and why?
That's an interesting question.
It's very different.
I think I'd be a Porsche 944.
Nice. Okay.
And the reason would be because it's not quite what you think of when you think of a classic Porsche, but it's quickly becoming an iconic and desirable car that will only keep going up in value.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend that has several of those, and he just loves them. And I remember when that car came out, and, well, the 924, that first one. And a friend of my mom's, I was in high school, he bought one, and I'm a 911 guy, always been, and he brought it over, and I kind of, okay, and he gave it to me to take my date to my senior high prom in. And so I got to drive it down to San Diego and over the Coronado Bridge to Hotel Del, and, it was like, oh, this is pretty fun. Not super fast or anything like that, but then when the 944 came out in the variations and the racing success that car had, was pretty impressive. And I'll tell you, when I was at the La Jolla Concours, I went out to Rancho Santa Fe to watch the tour drive through, and they have a car show out there every Saturday at Cars and Coffee. There was a guy there with remember the 968?
Yeah.
I had not seen one of those in a long time. This guy's was all original. It was a beautiful light blue color with a white linen interior. It was I think it was the only one that was built like that. Just a beautiful car with the cup wheels and cup mirror, and that, that era, kind of the next generation 944. So nicely said. I think you might be the only 944 on the show too, which is kind of cool.
Hey.
Yeah. Unique guy. I love it. How about great reading? We love books here. Is there a great book you'd like to share?
I don't have a lot of time to read books.
I would think so. Yeah.
I do. I have a lot of windshield time. So I listen to Audible, and I've listened to hundreds of books. And some of my most recent ones, Authentic, a memoir by the founder of Vans by Paul Van Doren, is awesome. Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind and Defy the Odds by David Goggins. Discipline is Destiny, The Power of Self-Control by Ryan Holiday is a really cool book.
Wow, you got a nice library going there. Yeah, and you may know this, Sean, but I'm going to say it again because so many people I talk to don't know this. My wife, my kids both, they read way more than I do. I try to keep up with all the books I get. Mostly I'm dealing with car books and enjoy them, but I just have my library overfloweth. And my wife discovered years ago, if you join your local library, they will send you audiobooks to your device for free.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and if they don't have it, you just request it and they'll get it for you. Now, nothing against Audible, but you'd have to pay for that. But yeah, it's tremendous. So she gets 1 or 2 books a week, and they just come to her device and reads them, and then onward. Because she used to keep all these books, and then she had this stacks and stacks of all these paperbacks, and everybody kind of hates to get rid of a book. It's like,
oh yeah.
Will I go back to that? I don't know, but Audible's a great way. So I'll put those on Sean's show notes page where. Well, if you listeners don't know this, or maybe you're new, there's a place on the Car Show website called Guest Recommended Books where there's over 3,000 books that are recommended by my inspiring automotive enthusiasts, just like Sean. So check it out. Ultimate Drive, Sean. Okay, here comes the fun part. I'm your benefactor. I'm the guy you've always wanted to meet because I've got a big checkbook. I'm going to provide you with any car in the world. Park it in your driveway. You can take it on a drive. You want to go across the country on that trip and visit all the museums. I'll book the bill for that. Don't worry about it. And you can take anybody with you, even somebody from the past who's no longer with us. So what does this ultimate drive look like for you?
You know, this is the one where it would be my 1959 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. I never rode in the car with my pop and can't ever even recall seeing him with the car. It was always just under the cover in his shop. I'd drive the car while he told me stories of how he first bought the car new. It's something I'll never know.
Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would just be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a great testament to anybody listening, and I know we're all busy in their lives, but if you have a chance to go for a drive with somebody from your family or even somebody up the street that's an elder person that has a cool car, yeah, take them for a drive and just listen. Ask them some stories about before, way back before you were born, and they have some amazing things to share. Or go to a Cars and Coffee and just walk around with an older person and say, hey, what was this like when it came out when you were a kid in the 30s or 40s? I did that at the La Jolla Concours with a few people that I ran into who were past guests here who were in their late 80s. And it's amazing what you learn. It's just wonderful. So sounds like a wonderful trip that would be. You've taken us on a wonderful trip. And again, my hat's off to you. And I can't thank you enough for spending time and what you're doing to carry on the legacy of Cars for People and introduce things to people. I mean, just incredible. Could you share maybe a success quote, a mantra, or some words of inspiration for our listeners before I let you go?
Yeah. I started a car museum with one car and no money at 33 years old in a city I had never been to. For every one person that was excited for me, 20 were waiting for me to fail. No matter how far-fetched something may seem, like founding a car museum that is about 50,000 square feet, over 100 vehicles on display, as long as you give it everything you've got and don't quit, you can make it happen.
Well, for sure. Yeah. Don't quit. Make it happen. Fantastic. And I love it. And it's always fun to look back and go, wow, I was able to pull that off. That is pretty neat. And the other thing I always say, and I've heard this many, many times, if you've got naysayers in your life, leave them in the rearview mirror and surround yourself with people that will support you and enlist your skills. And they might step up and help you in many ways too. So ask for help, because there's a lot of people out there that love to help. How can people learn more about Miles Through Time Automotive Museum, the Automotive Museum Guide, the Vintage Garage Antiques, and of course, Tori and your business?
So you can follow me on social media, Sean T. Mathis, or at Miles Through Time, or at Automotive Museum Guide, at Vintage Garage Antiques, or milesthroughtime.com, automotivemuseumguide.com, vintagegarageantiques.com, and ToriMathis.com.
Holy cow. You've got a few websites. Well, Sean, this is amazing. And I'm so happy that we were able to meet each other and connect. Really, really wonderful what you're doing. Keep it up, my friend. And until you and I talk again, I'll see you hopefully down the road at a museum or at yours.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.